Okay, this will be a 10-minute for voice at 200. Please state your name in full and spell it. Frederick Tompkins, FredrickThomkins. Okay. Have you ever had your deposition taken before? No. Okay, let me go over some ground rules, even though your counsel probably already went through them, even though this is an informal setting such as this conference room. Your testimony today will have the same force and effect as if you were testifying in a court of law. Do you understand that? Yes. Okay. The court reporter seated to my left is typing down everything we say. At the end of this deposition, she's going to type it into a booklet called a transcript. You'll have a chance to review the transcript and make any changes you feel necessary. However, if you make any substantive changes like yes to no or no to yes, that could affect your credibility. Do you understand that? Uh-huh. Okay, so it's important that you give us your best testimony today. Is there any reason you cannot give us your best testimony today? No. Okay. I'm also going to be asking you a lot of questions regarding maybe times and distances. You might not have an exact answer. However, I don't want you to guess, but I am entitled to your best estimate. Quick distinction. If I asked you how long this table is, you could look at it and give me your best estimate. If I asked you how long the table is in my dining room, you've never been to my house, that would be purely a guess. Do you understand the difference? I think so. Okay. Close distinction, because I think I understand what you mean. Okay. If you do not understand a question of mine, then please say, I don't understand, and I'll do my best to rephrase it. Also, back to the guess and estimate. If you really do not know and can't give me an estimate, then don't guess and just say, I don't know, which is a perfectly acceptable answer. Do you understand that? Yes. Okay. Also, you're doing a good job. The court reporter can only type down verbal responses. So, okay, you're doing a good job of yes and no, because head shakes and things like don't translate well for the record. Do you understand that? Yes. Okay. What is your date of birth? May 21st, 1964. And where were you born? New York. What is your current address? 2162 Cahunga Boulevard in Toluca Lake, California. And how long have you lived there? About 4 years. Okay. Are you married? No. Okay. Any kids? No. Okay. Where did you go to high school? Edgewood High School in Covina. And after, do you know when you graduated from Edgewood? It was either 1982 or 1984. Okay. Have you gone to any schooling after you graduated from Edgewood High School? Yes. Okay. And what schooling would that be? Went to college, got a bachelor's degree and an MBA. Okay. Where did you get the bachelor's degree from? Cal State Fullerton. And when did you receive the bachelor's? I don't recall the year. Okay, can you give me your best estimate? 4 years after high school. It took me 5 years. Late 80s? Yes, late 80s. Okay. And what was the bachelor's in? Psychology. And where did you obtain the MBA? Cal State San Bernardino. And do you know what year you got your MBA? Oh, it's approximately 6 years after my bachelor's degree. I don't recall the years. Okay, early to mid 90s? I think so. Okay, and what was the MBA in? It's a master's in business administration. Okay, have you had any other schooling besides the bachelor's and the MBA? Went through industry training program at Dean Witter. When was that? Mid 1990s. Okay, and did you receive any type of diploma or certificate? Well, a company designation, a company certificate. And what was that for? For stockbroker, investment broker training, also life insurance, specialties, different, financial specialties. Okay, I know that you own an auto business, correct? My family did. Okay, and what business is that? It was a franchise, Amco Transmissions. And your family just owned the one Amco, correct? Yes. Okay, have you had any training regarding the Amco transmission shop? Yes. Okay, and what training was that? AMCO's franchise training, and several private industry transmission specialty seminars. A consulting company named Management Success had several seminars which I had attended, but general business type training pertaining to that type of franchise. Okay, what is your title at AMCO Transmissions? I was the general manager. I was managing the business for my family. Are you still the general manager? No, they sold the business. Okay. When was the business sold? Last May of 2008? Yes. Okay. How long had the AMCO transmission been in your family? Approximately 8 years. And whose name was the business under? It was under a corporate name, Transrep Dynamics. That was the corporation holding AMCO? Yes. Okay. And were you an officer of Transrep Dynamics? No. Okay, who was anyone in your family an officer of Trans Prep Dynamics? Yes. Father was president, mother was vice president. And what is your father's name? Albert Nichols. And your mother's name? Anita Nichols. Are you currently employed? Self-employed. Okay, and what do you do now? I'm an investment advisor, insurance agent, pension plan sales, general financial items. Okay, and do you have a company name? Insurance Wholesalers is a general brokerage that I'm working through. And where is that located? Riverside, California. The address, I don't know. Arlington Boulevard in Riverside. I don't know the exact address. Okay, I take it that you don't actually work in the office there. Correct. We're all independent advisors and agents. Okay, do you work out of your house? Yes. Okay. And how long have you been doing this financial work? 2.5 months. Prior to working for insurance wholesalers, what did you do for employment? AMCO, managed the AMCO. Okay. And I managed some financial details for my family. Okay. How long were you the manager at AMCO? The 8 years. The entire 8 years? Approximately 8 years. Yes. Okay. I was general manager. We had several sub managers, sales managers over the time. Okay. And prior to working at AMCO, where did you work? I worked for several banks as an investment advisor, investment broker. Do you remember, was there one particular bank you worked for prior to starting the AMCO management job? Yes, there were several. One was a Sanwa bank. And do you remember when you worked there? I really can't. Do you know how long you worked there? About a year and a half. Okay. Was that just prior to the AMCO job? That was just prior. Okay, so 8 years, sometime late 90s? Yes. Okay, okay. Have you ever been convicted of a felony? No. Oh, where was this AMCO located? 11129 Lancashire Boulevard in North Hollywood, California. Okay. Was the AMCO there prior to your family buying it? Yes. Okay. And obviously we know why we're here today, correct? Right. Okay. High Tech Automotive, was that there when you first came in and took over AMCO? Yes. Okay. Go back. Do you recall the date this incident happened? Yes, it was Friday the 13th, August 13th of 2004. August 13th, 2004? Yes. Okay, do you know what time this incident happened? Approximately just past 10 o'clock in the morning. Okay, and what time did AMCO usually open? 8 o'clock. And what time did they close? Officially 5, but I was always there till 7 or 8. Okay, do you know the hours of High Tech Automotive? Their hours appeared to be not set hours, similar to mine. The nature of auto shops, open early, open late. Okay, I'm going to show you some pictures so that we can get a better idea as you're explaining to me, sure, of what happened in the incident. Okay, I'm going to be attaching these. There's pictures which are 1A, 1B, and 2A. If you can look at picture 1A for me, I see it, and describe what that shows in that picture. This is a picture that I had taken some time before the August 13th from inside, from the point of view inside of the AMCO Center looking out. It is a picture of a car that was a customer of High Tech Automotive that was parked in the throughway to essentially pin us into a very small area to confine us. Okay, but it looks like a Cadillac. Did the incident happen somewhere? Is the location of the incident where the incident happened depicted in that picture? Would you ask what you mean, what the question is? Yes, counsel. This was taken obviously before this incident ever happened, correct? Correct. But where you were standing and where the location of this incident happened. Is it depicted in the picture? Oh, yes, very close to that. Yes. Okay. Can you point out in this picture where it would be? Yes. Do you have the same picture? I do have the same picture. Okay. If you will notice, there is a plywood structure that guards some gas meters that appear to be in front of or to the left of the Cadillac. Just to the right of that plywood structure is where the customer's car was sitting, and my position was standing. My position was standing over a square manhole in the floor, which would be just to the left of where this car is. Okay, so would you say it was near the driver's side corner of where this Cadillac is pictured in 1A? No, it was further away. You can't see in this picture because of the contrast, but it would be about 8 feet further north, further left, north. Okay, so the car that had hit me was a little further to the right, forward, and I was a little further to the left. This car in this picture is not pulled out the way up to the wall. It's sitting out about 8 feet. Okay. The car that had hit me was a little further in. Okay, but it's the general area, that part of the parking lot. Why don't we go back to, did you show up probably around 8 o'clock that morning? I always showed up. I always showed up. My endeavor was to get there an hour early. Okay, you opened the shop, and do you recall what you were doing that morning just prior to? I don't recall what I was doing just prior to that. There's usually a flurry of activity in the morning in taking customers and getting everybody their assignments and general work. Okay, and how does it come that you're out in the middle of the parking lot there? The transmission rebuilder had requested that I empty the old dirty water from the parts washer that we have in the center because it was not cleaning. It was not cleaning well. It's a water-based parts washer with detergent in it. And I would extend a garden hose from the parts washer, which was way in the back of the AMCO center. I would extend it out through the center, down the call it a driveway there, and down into the manhole, down below the manhole cover. And instead of putting my mouth on the hose to start the siphon, I would use an industrial vacuum, okay, to start the suction and then take it away. And then I could leave it and let it run and drain for the whatever amount of time, the hour and a half it would take to drain. How many times had you done that prior? 30, 35 times approximately. Okay, how often would you empty this water from the parts washer? As needed or as requested by the rebuilder. In general, every 6 weeks to 12 weeks, okay, depending upon when it just stopped cleaning well. So is it fair to say that if you're looking back at picture 1A, the parts washer is in back, and then the hose would run through your service shop? Correct. And parallel along high tech in the middle of the driveway. At a slight angle, it would come out across my driveway and mainly through the parking area. But yeah, closely parallel. Okay, close to parallel. It's pretty hard to determine what the parallel was, but what's the general idea? Okay, so what time did you start this procedure? Well, it's a very quick process, just shortly after 10. It was probably about 10:15, 10:30. Okay, so what did you do first? I first find the hose from the hose in the hose area, if it's where it's supposed to be, and unfurled the hose, uncoiled the hose, extend it out to we call it the clarifier. It's an oil and water separator below the manhole cover. Extend the hose out to there. Find an electric extension cord, long one, plug it in the AMCO shop, extend it out to there. And then I have a special wet vac, and I would bring the extension cord and the hose out to that area and start the siphon suction with the wet vac. And my typical, go ahead. Okay. And as you're pulling the hose out there, I guess, are there any cars out there? At that time, there were not. In the picture to the left is a parking area that's shared by both of us. And to the right and toward our point of view, there are cars that are either in progress or customers inquiring. Okay. The only way I could go to that area if there were no cars, that's an area that is common from, so like the Cadillac would not have been in the picture. Is that correct? That's correct. The Cadillac is not supposed to be there. And had it been there, that would have hampered your, had it been there, I would not have done that because I wouldn't have, it just wouldn't be appropriate. I would choose a time where it's appropriate. It's not appropriate for the car to be there. That means trouble when I see a car sitting there. That was obviously a purposeful and reoccurring thing. Well, we'll get into that. Okay. I'll ask you further about that. Okay, well, the answer to that, if that car were there, I would not have done the siphon. Okay. Prior to this, when you had cleaned this parts washer before, had you ever had any problem? No. Okay. If I would have had a problem before, I wouldn't have attempted it. Okay. I avoid problems. I assume that, well, I'm not going to assume. Did you have any problems with the owner of the high-tech prior to this incident? I never had a problem with him. However, he had a problem with me, and it was they were reoccurring and they were different. That's the reason why I had taken pictures like this. Okay, never a problem over the water or the clarifier. Okay, and you knew David Azran? Yes. Okay, yes, he was our neighbor, our co-tenant. Spoken to him on many occasions? Yes. Okay. So you're out there and you've pulled the hose out to the manhole cover, correct? Yes. Have you taken the manhole cover off? Yes. Okay. Had you hooked up the vacuum to it already? Yes. And was the water siphoning? Not yet. It requires holding, a crude method that requires holding the vacuum hose to the water hose for a few seconds by hand. Okay. It's not an automatic thing. It requires holding for 15, 20, maybe 30 seconds, starting the vacuum in the siphon line, and then you can leave it and let it siphon by itself. Okay. And prior to the incident on this morning, had you had any conversations with either Mr. Azran or any employee of High Tech Auto? No. Okay. So you're out there and you're going to start to, it's all, strike that. Your procedure is pretty much set up, and then you're going to stick the hoses together and start the siphoning. Yes. Okay. And then just tell me what happens. Okay. David Azran walked up to me as I was leaning over to get the hoses together to start the suction. David walked over to me, stood over me and said, "You shouldn't be standing there. You can't stand there. This is a dangerous place to be." Okay. And then at that point, did he say anything else? No. I looked up at him and I said, and I saw, when I looked at him, I saw to the side there was a young fellow, a young man over where the car was parked, who looked to me to be a customer. And I said real quietly, I'm fairly soft spoken. I said very quietly, I said, "David, I don't need your permission." Okay. So that was 15 minutes.